Welcome to another edition of Living with Purpose. Today, I have a guest that I've known for a very long time, a colleague that we worked together for a while. Tschang is both a business leader, then became the executive director for NetHope, which is a nonprofit organization promoting technology to other nonprofits. And Molly has since then started off on her own, where she's become a leader, a coach, a thought leader. But most importantly, she has just released her new book, Say It Skillfully, where she is really getting people to have these hard conversations. So Molly, join us at Living with Purpose.
Thank you, Akhtar. It is a joy to reconnect with you and then have a chance to chat with folks.
Yeah, so talk about your journey. You're growing up. Where did you grow up? And how have you gone through a corporate career to where you are today?
Well, thank you for asking. And listeners should know, Akhtar and I were just talking about the fact that you can't help someone you don't know. You can't know them if you don't hear their story. And you'll never hear their story if you don't ask. So, Akhtar, I appreciate you providing this platform for folks to get to know people who might be different, coming in different walks of life, because my hope is that we can really embrace rather than fear our differences, because we really have much more in common than not. Yeah. So I am living the dream. I feel like a very blessed soul. This started out in upstate New York in Rochester, although I was born in New Jersey. And I have these two amazing parents, and God bless, they are still with us, who immigrated. My mom from Hong Kong and my dad from the mainland of China, the Henan province, although he grew up in Malaysia. And my parents are very pioneering types. They are my idols. My mom had never not slept in her own bed and never boiled water when she left Hong Kong at age 16 because she was going to become a nurse. And my grandmother was like, good luck, honey. It's not going to go well. But she embraced it. My mom hops on a boat with two friends. They go to England. She becomes a certified midwife. Like, no kidding. My mom's birthing babies. But she made it and she persevered. And she was supposed to go back to Hong Kong, but she came to America. Happened to meet my dad, who had been studying to be an electrical engineer. And he's a rocket scientist. If I'm ever like a tenth as smart as my dad, I would consider myself wildly successful. But they meet in the Poconos of America. They never go back. And here we are. I say that just because we grew up, with just insane, a lot of love and a lot of support, great values. But, there was one Black, one Korean, and one Chinese family. That was us, where we grew up. And I wouldn't say there was any overt racism or anything like that. But I have to say, Akhtar, I remember always wanting to fit in. Yeah. Always wanting to fit in. And I didn't speak English until I was 5. Just super shy. Like the first grade report card was, Molly seems very bright. Doesn't say a lot. And I just think I was a mute. I just think the whole world was really kind of terrifying to me. So that I'm here with Say It Skillfully and helping other people find their voices is really a miracle to me, number one. And two, I hope really inspiring for folks to realize that it is a learned skill, 100%. So I'm a geek at heart. I ended up studying chemical engineering. As a kid, because we were different, I think the idea of, being smart enough, we did gymnastics, we played the violin, you do things that other people don't do, and people sort of give you some space. And so, it was a super fun childhood, but I wouldn't want to do it again. I have to be honest, right? I really wouldn't. I have to say I ended up going to Cornell for university, which was just the most amazing thing ever. But I remember as a sophomore in high school, just to spite my mom was like, well, what do you think you want to be when you grow up, sort of question. And I said, and I'm not kidding, a secretary.
Yeah.
I think you almost drop this hot pot of food on the floor. Because, this Asian descent, you're like an engineer, a doctor, an engineer, or a dentist, right?
Exactly.
Oh, so I ended up going to school. I had the most amazing experience. But I will tell you, after the freshman fall, I was ready to transfer because it was so hard. I went to school with super smart people.
Yeah.
And I was kind of barely hanging on. And so I'm very proud of just kind of getting out of there because it was finally, it was great experience socially, but it was hard. And so I say to folks, nothing has been hard since I left school. So it set me up well. I was going to go and be a process engineer in the refineries of Chevron. I got, one of those jobs that I was super excited about. And I had my first experience of just trusting my intuition, because 30 days before graduation, I got a call from IBM. We're IBM, would you like to talk? And my first moment of skillfulness was really like, well, I've accepted a job, but I'd be happy to hear what you have to say. So I was very upfront about it. So they're like, can you fly to Armonk? And I'm like, yeah, I can fly to Armonk. So you can imagine, a youngster on the corporate headquarters deck of IBM, beautiful campus, talking to some woman with pearls here, pearls there in a suit. And I don't really remember what she said. But at the end of it, for 2/3 the salary, so full 1/3 less salary, she gave me a job in San Francisco, same area. And I said, okay, I'll take it. I called home, Mom, Dad, guess what? And I said, I took this job at IBM. Deafening silence on the other end, where I said, hello? Is anyone there? I mean, I thought the line dropped. And they were just, I'm sure they were like, yeah, she was so upset. And then what did she do? But, it changed my life journey. I would have been fine either way, but it ended up on this business route. And as folks who know at IBM, it's an unbelievable training and finishing school. And so that idea of just sort of eyes open to what it's like to move around in social settings at work, to influence people, to sell, that was just unbelievable.
Well, why did you choose from Cornell to San Francisco?
Out west. I mean, we have relatives all over the globe. God bless them. We traveled a lot as kids. I was like, I'm going to San Francisco. I don't know why. I had never been there. There was no reason to have any, but I was like, I'm going. So I, got myself there and started, and it was fabulous. I mean, the West Coast, I feel very blessed to have been in the Bay Area before it was, quote unquote, so crowded. Skiing in Tahoe every weekend, riding my bike across the Golden Gate Bridge, eating out every night. It was joyous as a young person to just spread your wings, get roommates, the first experience of roommates, buying a car, all of those things, And so I really did feel like I was living the dream. It's funny to me because I'm not a big company girl. I think I have a certain inherent irreverence to the whole thing. So I think 3 years of IBM was great. I decided to go to business school and went to UCLA, which was fabulous. Just really great experience. I ended up heading up this entrepreneur club. So I think everyone thought I would start my own company, which ultimately I have, but many years later. But, I think if you can go into higher education and have a chance, I mean, learning is a gift if you have a chance to do that. I think the people you meet and the growth experience is awesome. I came out of that into consulting. And I love consulting as an experience because you're dropped into new environment all day long. And you have to make new friends, figure out who knows what, understand the problem you're solving and solve it. And just the most joyous experiences at Deloitte. It was Deloitte and Touche. Actually, it was Touche Ross when I interviewed in Deloitte and joined. So that first integration experience, that was kind of an early time of that. So that was great. And then I ended up going to a high growth company called US Filter. And I had, this network. So for the folks listening, obviously the power of just staying in touch with people. But I got a call from someone, another chemie buddy from consulting, says, we're here in the desert of California, like Palm Desert. We're just joining this US Filter, some blah, 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 big company. You should check it out. And so the net of it is I joined this company where the CEO was a visionary, consolidating the water treatment business, which is chemical engineering, hiring a bunch of young people to buy companies and integrate them and build this one-stop shop of water purification. And so I was all in. And talk about purpose. We had a mission, right? We were going to build this one-stop shop, consolidate the industry, create a great company. And I worked nonstop for 4 years. I loved every minute of it. However, I learned burnout. And so after 4 years of working, you kind of realize that that's not the best way to go. I also learned, you start to develop habits of people around you, some good, some not so good. And so I had a little come to Jesus with myself about, this isn't really the Molly I know. This is not how you want to be. not necessarily the easiest thing to swallow when you realize you have been behaving in ways that maybe aren't true to yourself. So I call this doing the work, folks. Like, I think along the way, you have to do the work and confront the things that you've done, the ways that you have been that maybe aren't as true to yourself. But I think you have to go through those to learn what you're not and then emerge out of that better and stronger. So I think as a result of that, I took a year and a half off as a sabbatical that I would say I had to because I just really needed to settle and to get to know myself for who I think I wanted to be. Part of that was doing this career seminar series that was packaged in a book. I think there's a Harvard book, In Transitions, by some Harvard professor folks. At Filter, we were on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. We went from the Amex to New York. I mean, we had a lot of really heady experiences, but you got to put that all into perspective. And so I ended up getting a job at Cisco Systems in the heyday of the Valley. And, right in the midst of the business development group at Cisco, which at the time, unbeknownst to me, was like the hottest job in the Valley. Right. And so I think another funny thing for folks is the idea of persevering, because the person who hired me was also a Cornellian. And I called him. The first time I called him, oh, right. Well, I'm really busy now. I can't talk to you. And I'm like, click. And so I'm like, okay, he's coming back, whatever. So I think I persisted calling Amar Hanafi back. I don't know. 8 times. I mean, just, and I didn't take it personally. He was busy doing deals. And then one of those times he's like, oh, okay, now's a good time. And so I would say that ability to just be standing in what you want to have happen and not, quote unquote, taking adversity and letting that knock you down. I feel like my naivete, I think maybe if I knew more, I might have thought, well, he's not interested. He's just being nice. But I was like, no, I'm just going to call back. He said to call back. I'm calling back. So I kept calling back.
Let me just stop you for just a moment. Because I think you've just said some fascinating things, which I just want to repeat in a nutshell for our listeners. First, always keep your options open and say yes. Molly didn't have to say yes to IBM at all, take that call, but she actually decided to say yes. And that yes opened a door and a path to a journey which is very different than if she had said no. Just keep that in mind of the power of saying yes. The second is the ability to learn. And how do you learn? And how do you show up to learn? And I think that is because you put yourself up in a place of curiosity, and seeking curiosity allows you to learn. Third, this whole power of networking and just keeping yourself in the space that you need to be and building yourself up from that. Fourth, which I think is very important, is taking care of yourself. Self-care is very important in everything that we do. And I think the fifth point, which you just made right now, is this whole ability to network. Right? Don't take no for a no. Keep persevering. Something will show up at the other end. So this is great. So I just wanted to kind of frame it for our listeners so that they can understand how each of these little moments of your life has actually helped shape you. So here you are in Cisco, and then suddenly you decide to go from Cisco to a nonprofit.
Thank you for sharing all that you did, just bundling all that up. I had never done nonprofit work, so on the side, I got Save the Children. And I got to know the development person, Donovan Cook, talking to me, and I realized how the nonprofit space is, fabulous in its ways, but doesn't have some of the things that the private sector space has. And so that ability to work across sectors is so valuable. And so just the way that I would think about business and problem solving and applying that to the nonprofit, I could tell was a new thing for him. And so as a result of just our growing relationship, they were doing an empowering women and girls delegation to the Uganda and Ethiopia. They were taking a small group. You had to pay your own way, and you had to raise $10,000 to get an inside peek at how this development work happens on the ground. And I was like, all in. I'm in. So I was supposed to raise $10,000. My donor base alone raised $70,000. for someone who had never really raised a dime before. So the experience of thinking about how to appeal to people, what would make it so that people would want to contribute. I mean, we're empowering women and girls. We're building schools, and the girls would go get the water, and they wouldn't go to school because they got raped on the way to school because there was no toilets. I mean, there was just stuff that was kind of raw. And so, I remember going to him and saying, hey, I'd like to put together a little list. Like if someone donated, 15 or 50 or 500 or 2,500 or $20,000, what does that mean? And that apparently caused a huge ruckus in Westport. They're like, what? She's like, yes, she wants to know. I'm not saying that the money anyone gave would necessarily buy that, but help create an image of the kind of impact that someone would have by supporting this trip that I'm going on. And so I ended up getting a little sheet, and I just went out, just fundraising, and people were so generous. And I said to myself, if I never go on this trip, I've gotten enough out of it, because it was so heartwarming. And so then we go over there, and we're traipsing around rural Africa, in these crazy places. It's just, in the inside, just figuring, and I'm like, wow, I can see why at the UN in New York or at the World Bank in DC, this is really hard to think about programs that are going to work so far away if you really aren't connected at the very furthest reach to how this development work happens, right? I mean, this super well, but it was a very visceral reaction. Okay, I get it. This is really hard to do the translation. But the net of it is just an unbelievable experience. And literally days after I got back, because it was a 3-week trip, I took time off from work. I ran into our friend Deepak Bus.
Yeah.
And I'm sharing, he's like, well, I'm just finishing up as the first executive director of this nonprofit. You'd be a great executive director. You should go talk to blah, 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 whatever. And I'm thinking I'd never even heard of the term executive director. And I march over to whoever he told me to go see. And I'm like, hi, here I am. And so sure enough, I was seconded as the second executive director to this startup nonprofit, Nat Hope. And at the time, for folks, Microsoft and Cisco had been, if you will, benefactors of this startup. And if you can think about the chief information officers of all these nonprofits, they all, quote unquote, compete, right? They're raising money against each other. But when you go into these release situations, they're all setting up their separate networks when they actually could be collaborating, setting up one network, working together to make the world better. And so when those CIOs were able to go to their CEOs and say, Cisco and Microsoft think this is a good deal. What do you think if I take part in this? And so just realizing how important, having an external validation is to opening the mindset of people. So when I got in there, it was a most amazing role. I mean, it was a 1.5 years. I never worked harder with more passion or purpose to help that group come together strategically and think about who do we want to be as Nat Hope? What could we be for the world? It was such a gift for me. And we hired our first kind of professional executive director after I left, and then the rest is history. I mean, kudos to Lance Pierce and the team now for all that they're doing to make a better world. So, after that, I ended up going to a strategic consulting group at Cisco. So that was great.
Just to, again, round up NetHope. NetHope was started in early 2000. This is the height of the technology, where people knew we wanted technology to not just help the business sector, but also reach the underserved communities. Nonprofit organizations, large nonprofit organizations like Save the Children and CARE and World Vision and, many others were all starting to use technology. They all had hired chief information officers. And really, NetHope was a way to kind of bring all of them together so that you can actually really think about how do you work across your technology platform so you're not duplicating resources, given that most funders were not willing to pay for you to buy technology. So this is really how the Gates Foundation, Microsoft, Cisco really kind of came together to try and build a platform and an organization that can do that. And today, NetHope is still functioning. So sorry, Molly, but what a great experience. And it was such a fun time working with you then.
Yeah, it is a real privilege. And so I encourage folks, if you are in private sector and haven't had a chance to spread your wings a bit, I would, find a cause that you're supportive of. The ability to work across sectors. I mean, our hardest, there are no intractable problems. We can't solve them if we bring the different resources of view in, for sure.
Talk about your book. The UN book. The book has just come out.
Yes.
I want the listeners to go buy it.
Yes.
We'll read it.
Fast forward to the book, right? So I ended up leaving Cisco to start my own consultancy in 2014. Just a gift. Great. I'm very passionate about helping senior management win as one, which is to build that powerful chemistry to lead together and really commit to each other's success. So I'm cranking along on my little consultancy. And then 6 years ago, I meet Marshall Goldsmith, who has changed my life forever for the good. And Marshall is one of the top executive coaches in the world, coached the top 200 CEOs. But he really modeled generosity, giving away everything he knows for free. So I joined this amazing 100 coaches group of his, which is just a real blessing to be a part of. And I'm just surrounded by people who are in very different spaces. And I'm a very private person. But I post in 2017, a 90-second video on LinkedIn of me kind of role-playing a conversation where a junior person speaks up in a room full of management, which is like the scariest thing in the world to do. And so that just launched a series of videos because I thought 10 people would watch, and like 36,000 people did. So every week for a year, Akhtar, I took over my life. I'm producing these videos. I'm on social media. But it clearly showed to me that people want to speak up at work. They either are they're not for whatever reasons, or they don't know how. And I really wanted to delve into that. So I got asked to have my own podcast like you have. And it helped me build this Say It Skillfully, which is about learning how and when best to use your voice, right? And that is your number one success factor in life. Forget work, overall. Does anyone teach us that? No. We can do sales training, presentation training, negotiation training, but Akhtar is unique from Molly. So you have a different base of life and you can say things in a way that I can't, and vice versa. So this idea of how does one understand how you can authentically say what needs to be said became I was just on a mission to help people with this. And so I ended up creating a program, Say It Skillfully 101, a course that really helps people go through it, because it's not watching me on video. It's how can you practice the conversations.
Right.
Then finally, I kind of came forward and packaged the whole experience of the last 6 years into this book, which Marshall and I co-authored. Ken Blanchard, who has sold 25 million books, the foreword was such a blessing. And then Alan Mulally, arguably top CEO in the world. He wrote the epilogue. And we're so game on about this because we really confront this widespread workplace disconnect whereby people aren't speaking up with what they think needs to be said at work. And the management thinks they're accessible. The employees think otherwise. And so there's this gap. I'll caveat this by saying, yeah, there are people out there and you're in an environment, no one wants to hear you. That's not what I'm talking about. If people really don't want to hear what you have to say, this isn't about being more skillful. So take those folks out. But most bosses do not wake up and say, wow, I'm going to make it so hard that no one will tell me what I need to hear. I mean, that's not what they don't fly out of bed doing that. And so I think that ability to bridge the disconnect, to help create transparency for the fact that, communication is a team sport. Everyone has a role. It's not the boss's fault. It's not the people's fault. We are all in it together. And by the way, folks, newsflash, we are all part of the problem and we can all be part of the solution, right? It's not a one only. There's times where I've done things wrong, said things wrong. I got to own that. And then I have to be able to flip the switch and say, I want to be part of the solution. And so, there's fears that people have, fear of being wrong, not fitting in, of offending people. So the book takes people through this reality, which people have legit fears. And how can you overcome those? And then fundamentally, how do you find a way that you can speak up? And we share a very simple framework, me, you, we, that anyone, senior down to entry-level summer intern, can use. So we're very excited about igniting this movement because if people really felt that they contribute fully, Akhtar, there is zero doubt in my mind, performance goes up. When people say it skillfully, performance improves, everyone wins. And that's what we're game on in this book.
Well, congratulations for the book, and it's available on Amazon, so I guess people can go and find it there.
Yes, please, 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 please. We hit a #1 bestseller in one of our categories. We are a top #1 new release in 10 categories, and every single book counts, people. I appreciate that. Reviews count. But most of all, in my heart, I know how disempowering it is when you don't feel like you can speak up with what needs to be said. And I know how freeing it is to be able to be yourself and contribute fully. And I just want that for every single person out there.
Moving forward, because we will run out of time, talk a little bit about the importance of purpose and why purpose has been so important for you and how you've been using it.
Purpose is amazing. So it's also a thing that you groom, craft. So people shouldn't feel like I'm 18 years old. What's my purpose? I think if you get there when you're 18, God bless you. That's amazing. I just want to normalize that finding your passions, that you create it. You find it when you don't love. So it's a journey. It is never a there. I think it's a continual thing. I got very fortunate in 2000, it must have been 15, to meet this amazing coach, Francis Fuji, who took me through a passion and purpose exercise over 8 or 9 hours. And so I have to say I crafted mine. And in one word, my passion is ignite. My purpose statement is with heart, creativity, and compassion. I inspire myself and others to have the courage to be true to ourselves, to dream big, and harness the wow power of us so that together we're a force of nature and anything is possible. And when I codified that in my mind, Akhtar, I was free as a bird. Everything landed because I knew where I needed to spend my time, why I could let go of this, because I just knew why I was here. I'm all about unleashing human potential. It lights me up. And so I encourage folks, you don't necessarily have to have a pithy statement, but what matters to you? Why are you doing whatever you're doing? If you're running a company, what is the mission? What is greater? What is greater because everyone coming together to do it than what any one person could do? And it's been a very galvanizing force for me. And I appreciate the work that you're doing to just help people ask the questions. I call it do the work of getting to know myself or who I am. And it does change. So people shouldn't feel like you got to have some pithy statement that's locked and loaded. But I think that mindfulness, Akhtar, that you're helping people in the world think about hey, what does matter to me? What are my values? How does it inform what I do? How I'm showing up? And these are things that I think, this is the wisdom, I think, of some years of experience. You just have a greater comfort of things that are, maybe great for you, but also the things you don't do well and will never do well. And you can be at peace with that.
So talking about wisdom, let's end by you sharing your one golden nugget, a piece of wisdom that you live by, that you want to share with our audience.
Well, 100%. It is. Because to learn how and when to best use your voice is the most life-changing skill, benefiting your career, all your relationships, and all you do. And I just want people to know that that's something that's on you. I'm here certainly to help you, and hopefully all the people around you are as well. But I really want people to have this fundamental skill because it really unlocks untold opportunity.
Use your voice. All of us have a voice. And every voice is different. So use it. Even if you sound similar, it is actually different. And I think Molly is doing an amazing service to all of us through her book. Please take the opportunity to go read it. Molly, thank you very much for being on Living with Purpose. Again, as Molly also highlighted, purpose is a continuous journey. You keep finding your purpose. It evolves. It is not static. It is your renewable source of energy that drives humanity forward. Use it. Thank you all very much for being part of the show. Until next time, go check out Living with Purpose. Molly, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.